Good afternoon, all, and thank you for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. Today I'm joined by Anton, which is very exciting because we're going to talk all about his story, which I found a little bit about online. I think you guys might have heard of what he has done as well, but we'll dig a little bit deeper into that, as well as talking about mental health and the men's stigma that's associated with mental health as well. But to kick us off, Anton, do you want to kind of just explain who you are and what is it that you are doing for those that don't know?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. Name is Anton. I'm a 35-year-old Dutchman living here on this paradise island called Australia now for the last 6.5 years. I spent 10 years in the Dutch army. Before I came here, did 3 tours to Afghanistan. And most recently, why we're having this chat now, I think, is I did a Guinness World Record walking barefoot from Cairns to Sydney. To raise awareness for mental health and men's mental health in particular, to create a platform to share my own stories of my own struggles. So hopefully other people and other men can take bits and pieces out of it. And it's like, like if he can do it, then I can do it, to break the stigma.
Amazing. Congrats on that phenomenal journey. I remember watching a bit of it on the news and just going, that is just freaking phenomenal. So good on you for doing that. I want to take you back before we dive into your journey and also doing that massive walk. But how or why, what happened when you were at the army in your initial moments? Why did you decide to go to the army?
Well, my decision to join the army actually came forward out of 2 different things. My brother was in the army when I grew up. He's way older than I am, so I already got like just a bit of his experience, and I always kind of felt like as a guy it would be cool to experience how that would be like. But I was actually going to do something completely different. I was going to go to the States to do high school after I finished my own high school. But right at the time I was going to go, my dad's company actually went broke, went down, and everything was in private, so he lost everything. The company, the house, the car, everything was gone. And I was still living with my parents at that time. I was 17. And because of that, I made the decision, okay, it's time for me to step up. I'm going to work so I can provide for my parents. And for me, that was a win-win because I got to join the army. I still got the experience. I love adventure, traveling. Now I got to pay for it as well. So in the end, it worked out well. And I was going to do just a 2.5 year contract just to have the experience to help my parents out for the time. I ended up staying 10 years, a little bit longer.
Yeah, and you said that you did 2 tours. Was it in Afghanistan?
3 tours.
How was that experience for you?
I mean, it's life-changing. It made me who I am today. It was good in general. Like, there's just days that you don't want to do again. On each of these missions, there was a moment where my life could have been or should have been over. But it didn't happen. I'm lucky enough to be in one piece, and I'm lucky enough for all my mates to be in one piece. But after that, I definitely had my first, realizations of what mental health means, what men's mental health means. You come back from missions, you get to see things that most people never get to see, and you get to endure stress levels that most people will never have to endure in a lifetime. And still, there was this big taboo about, when you came back, about talking up. Joking was easy, but actually speaking up about things that are going on in your mind was it was definitely in a masculine environment like the army, it's just not done. And I've seen a lot of my mates struggle with that, including my brother. For me, lucky enough, I'm lucky in 2 different ways. I'm lucky I'm in one piece, and I'm lucky that my brain was kind of wired in a way that I was able to process these things by myself. It took a bit of time, like after a few weeks, a few months of going through a bit of a process of coming home, I was just able to move on, where a lot of my mates are stuck in that thought process and with nightmares and terrors. So that was my first realization. But because I was still in that environment myself, I didn't really fully realize what was going on. Not until I stepped out is when I clearly saw this is a problem.
In the army, do they encourage the men and the women there to talk about what they see and how they feel about what they are experiencing?
There is help. So before you return from a mission and go back home, you have 3 days that you spend somewhere else. We went to Greece on an island You have your first conversations, you have your first just interaction with normal civilization again, you have your first beer again, to kind of recoup on everything that's happened. But again, you know, you're there with your whole unit, you're there with some different units as well. You sit in a circle. No one's going to raise their hand and say, you know what, actually, I want to sit here and talk about this. No, everyone wants to go out and have a beer and have some fun. And then after 6 weeks of your turn, there's a letter that goes out, which is this standard questions of how you're feeling, and that's pretty much it. But to be fair as well, like in the end, it needs to come from the person itself. They can only say like, we're here if you need help, but it needs to come from the person itself. And it's still that stigma that stops people from doing that. So help is there. There's definitely things that could be done better. Show a bit more that it is completely fine to speak up about it. You don't have to be ashamed. It's normal. That still doesn't really happen, but yeah, from us, like from one guy to another, that's where it needs to happen. We need to show each other it's completely fine to have these feelings and emotions, and it's not weak to speak up. We're courageous. We need to change that perspective. And men are pretty simple when it comes to that. If we see a mate do something or another man do something, we feel like, well, if you can do it, then I can do it. That's what we need to do. We need to speak up and share our own stories so we can create that safe space for someone else to feel that he can share as well.
Yeah, amazing. And when you came back home, did you find that you found it hard to open up about what you were experiencing to people that had no idea what you went through?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest aspects actually for military people that stop them from speaking up, because they feel like whoever they talk to, you don't know what I'm talking about. You haven't been there. And that's why I think more of us that are ex-army or are in the army need to position ourselves in a way that we can be there to provide, because especially for veterans that have left the army, they feel very misunderstood. And just like they can't really share their story with anyone that doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's definitely a big problem. And depression and suicide rates amongst veterans are through the roof. So that needs to change.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking how bad it got for you in terms of your mental health struggles?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I'm here. For me, it didn't really happen until I came to Australia. Like, I was traveling for a long time, but then things started to settle down and I started to get back into a normal life here, and Murphy's Law happened. So everything kind of happened at the same time. When I left the Netherlands, I sold my apartment, didn't care about any of it. I just wanted to get rid of it because it was on the other side of the world. But that left me with a big debt that I didn't think about until this one particular moment. And it came together with a really bad breakup. Breakups, I believe, are pretty much the worst thing on this planet. Like emotionally, like it happens to everyone, and it's like it feels like mourning, it feels like loss. It gets you pretty tough. I was stuck on a student visa, which had like a lot of restrictions on my movements here in Australia, so I couldn't really work, do a job that I wanted to do. So I got stuck on this job that I hated at the time, which meant, I didn't want to be there. And I started to get panic and anxiety attacks going to this work, going to these jobs. Like I felt stuck in what I was doing. And then on top of that, the realization that I had no identity anymore. So I was in the army for 10 years. I was a soldier. That's how everyone knew me. That's how I knew myself. And with all of this happening, the breakup, the financial pressure, the shit job, the visa, not having any family around here, all of a sudden it became really clear I was no one. I was just walking around here, no passion, no goal, no meaning to life anymore. Where in the army, you're always very goal driven. You always, you have this purpose, you're working towards something. And I was just kind of floating around, not having a clue what I was doing and who I was. And having all of that on your plate at once, and with no backup, that was tough, to a point where I couldn't be at work. Because I couldn't be at work, I had no income, so I couldn't pay for living here as well. So I was 31. I moved back to a hostel, 6-bed dorm, sharing my room with 18 and 19-year-olds that were absolutely frothing on life, and I was this black cloud, this this old guy in a room with a depression. So I didn't want to be there as well. So all I could think of was just walk, be outside, not having any direction, just get away. And all I had, so I was losing the friends I had here as well, because they were all absolutely having a blast, going out, living in Australia, everything was well. And I didn't want to be that black cloud around them, and they didn't really want to be around me anymore as well. So I could only talk to myself. So I was pacing up and down Manly Beach for 8-9 hours a day, talking to myself, and it was just negative talk. So I went deeper and deeper into that hole of believing myself, whatever I was telling myself, how much of a loser I was, and I was this adult guy, not having a single clue what he was doing. That girlfriend didn't want me, and she pointed everything out that she didn't like about me as well, which is normal, but then didn't really help in that position. So I definitely got to a point where I was like, you're either gonna go across that very dark border, or you're gonna make a change. And I literally, I was walking here, I'm looking at the beach right now. I was pacing up and down, and I stopped myself, and I told myself, there's only one person that can change this whole situation, and that's you. No one else can do it for you, no matter how much you're going to depend on someone else. And you're either going to make that change, or you're going to go down that rabbit hole. So I was at this intersection, and I made the choice. Okay, like, all these people around me here that I'm looking at right now, they're having a life, they're laughing. So I can be that person again as well. Like, I was always that very outgoing, super social guy, and now I was just this black cloud. It's like, no, I can be that guy again. I just didn't know how. And I had this one friend left from the Netherlands as well. She lived here as well, and she was seeing this spiritual / mental coach, and she kind of like, maybe I'm going next week. Maybe you can just come with and see how you go. And before, if anyone would ever tell me about meditation or yoga or a spiritual mental health coach, I would tell them, you see that tree over there, just go hug it, go away. I don't want to hear any of this. Like, it's just far out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Where now I was rock bottom. I had nowhere else to go. I didn't know what else to do. So it's like, screw it, I'm just gonna come and see what happens. And of course, I had no money, so I told that lady as well, like, this is all I have. I have this one session. Give me something to grab onto. Give me something. And she did. She gave me a book, Mindfulness: Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And that was my first little spark of, hey, I can see things differently. And it was far away from what I knew. It talked about meditation. It talked about mindfulness, how to chew on a raisin and actually, go through the sensation of chewing on a raisin. Like, what the hell am I reading? But I started to do it. And bit by bit, that little spark started to grow into like, hey, like, I want to know more about this. Like, even it was for 10 seconds in that moment, I felt better for those 10 seconds. And that started to, build better, 30 seconds, 1 minute. And all of a sudden I was feeling good for half a day. I woke up in the morning without having that pressure on my chest, that anxiety, and my heart just racing. And she gave me an app, a Headspace, like a meditation app. And all of a sudden, I was looking for a place to sit still for 5 minutes to listen to what this guy was saying to me. And without really realizing, it's like, hey, I've been sitting still for 5 minutes with my own thoughts. I haven't been, going nuts. So there's all these little bits that kind of sparked the fire of, I want to read about this. I want to listen to podcasts about it. I started to look at YouTube videos of other guys going through like similar things, and I started to listen to their stories. And I started to talk to people. It's like, and when I started to talk to people, I started to realize, hey, all of these people have been going through something as well, or are going through something as well. Like, I'm not in it by myself. Like, I always kind of told myself, you're the only loser on this planet by now. And it obviously wasn't the case. You're not a loser, one, and two, everyone is going through their own struggles. So yeah, I just started to do all these little things for myself, and that slowly guided me to coming out of it and coming out of it even better than I've ever felt before. I learned more. It took me 2 years of everyday, very hard work. But after those 2 years, I could honestly say I've learned more in these 2 years about myself than in the 30 years before. Yeah.
Congratulations. That is a phenomenal journey to really pivot and turn that around and make that decision, because I think a lot of people at the end of the day come to that crossroad and they either have two decisions that they need to make. And, depending on where your head's at, some people unfortunately don't make that right decision, or not even a right decision, but make that decision to really change. So congratulations on that. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Did you find starting to do meditation and starting to do yoga with the male sort of stigma attached to doing the more feminine things that are classified in society, did you find that you were judged doing that, or did you feel like you were judging yourself because you were going into a new environment that men don't normally touch?
I was definitely judging myself, thinking, this is very an unmanly thing to do, especially coming from the army, working in construction. But funny enough, how it usually goes when you do it and you start sharing it. First reaction you get from guys like, "Oh, you're so gay, blah blah blah, hippie, blah blah blah." But then one by one, they will come and ask, "So, what does it do?" And or they say like, "Hey, I've actually tried it last week as well. And it's actually pretty good." So when it comes to group of men in the bar or at the job site, of course you have a bit of banter about it, but then it kind of comes to a point like, oh, it's actually working and it's actually benefited me as well, or where do you do it, so it's becoming less and less of a feminine thing and more of it's just for everyone. It's always been for everyone. It benefits everyone, and it's spoken about a little bit more, but it's still a little nudge that we need to get to actually do it. I think it's a good way of, now I think we just need to put it in a little bit of a different wrapper. If we speak about it differently, then men will maybe hold on to it differently as well. You know what I mean?
For sure. It's all the way we conceive it and how we talk about it and the language that we use around certain concepts that influence others. And I definitely agree that we need to approach it differently.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's what we are. We're starting the conversation around it, which is did you find that when you started to open up and talk about your feelings that you no longer had negative thoughts, or do you still experience negative thoughts today?
Oh, I think that's a never-ending process. I think we're always going to go through this roller coaster called life. We're going to go up and down, left to right. But it's when we accept life can suck, then life it doesn't matter that life sucks, because we just accept it. It's fine. It's going to happen. It's just about finding, your triggers, how to respond to those triggers, and just finding ways of dealing with it better. So every time it happens, you just get a little bit better and better and better at it, and it works. So it's never going to stop. There's still moments where I have negative self-talk. To be honest, the last 2 days, I don't know what it was, but I was very sluggish, low on energy. I woke up, didn't do the things I needed to do. I was on my phone straight away. And I just started talking to myself like, oh, you just, you're slacking off. But it's fine. You can't always be, on top of the game every single day. It's completely fine to have off days. And when you have an off day, just have an off day. Just embrace it. Sit on the couch, mope around, watch Netflix. And then the next day you can feel completely fine again. But just knowing that one is completely fine to have these days, and knowing where it comes from as well. So learning the process of it, and just learning the tools of how to deal with it. Whenever you catch your own thinking, just stop it in that process, gently stop it in the process, and just change the conversation you have with yourself. Why would you talk to yourself as if you're an ass? Well, you're just your best mate. Talk to yourself as if you'd be talking to your best mate. Nothing is going to change with talking negative to yourself.
Awesome. Such good advice, and thank you for sharing that. If we look into the next side of your journey, where you decided to go on then and hit out a Guinness World Record, amazing. were you always planning to do that?
No, kind of just happened. To be fair, like 2 years prior to the walk from Sydney to or from Cairns to Sydney, I did something similar. So when I came out of my mental health chapter, I wanted to treat myself for doing the hard work that I'd done, and traveling was always my go-to. Like as long as I can remember, I travel, and that's the one thing that makes me most happy. Always wanted to see Nepal. Always wanted to see the highest mountain in the world. So I decided for myself, okay, I'm going to Nepal to treat myself. But then because I traveled so much, like Asia, States, Africa, I was fully aware as well of how lucky and blessed we are to be born and raised in a safe country like the Netherlands or Australia. This we are that one lucky 2% in the world maybe that gets to live the life we do. So I always kind of felt like whenever I get a chance, I want to do something back for people less fortunate than I am. And the people in Nepal living in the remote communities of the Himalayas were those type of people that could use a lot of help. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do something to raise funds and awareness for the people living there. And another aspect in the army, in the movies, it always kind of seems like they're just shouting. Whenever you go to training, they're just shouting at you for no reason. They make you do all this ridiculous stuff for no reason. But it's actually to show you that your mind and body are capable of doing so much more than we give it credit for. So by pushing your boundaries constantly, they show you can do more. So we start to whinge and say like, I can't go any further. And they would say, no, you're only 10% of what you can actually achieve. We're going to bring you there. We're going to bring you to that 20, 30, 40, 50. And they kind of realize there are no boundaries. So by pushing these boundaries, you kind of feel this power that we all have inside of us, that it's only our negative self-talk that put limits on our own capabilities. And whenever things get uncomfortable, that's when we say, this is as far as I go. But once we get out of that comfort zone or go into those fears, we all of a sudden realize, now I can do so much more. This whole new world of opportunity arises. And I wanted to feel that again. So I wanted to do base camp Mount Everest. Base camp Mount Everest, use that walk to raise awareness and funds for the people in Himalayas. So everything kind of came together. And then one day I was walking again here in Manly, and I figured, okay, if I want to raise money, I need to come up with something special. You can. Base camp Everest is challenging mentally and physically, but it's not out of the ordinary. And I was walking barefoot quite often here because, as you do on the beaches, and I just had this moment, I was like, I'm pretty sure no one's ever done Base camp Everest barefoot, because why would you? Like, it's super uncomfortable. And that was my light bulb moment. Like when I said uncomfortable, that's it. That's going to be my niche little thing that makes this more interesting for people to follow and to donate. So I became the first person ever to walk barefoot to Base camp Mount Everest. And it was this little movie moment when I got there. Like, of course, it was, a bit of a mission to get there barefoot. But I got there, and on base camp, you have this massive rock, which states like how high you're at. I think it's 5,364 meters. And as I was like stumbling towards that rock, I touched it. And as my fingers touched the rock, all these emotions started to come out. Like I started crying and laughing at the same time. And think like all the pain and struggle from the 2 years prior and all the happiness of where I was standing right now, this came out. And in a moment, I realized, I've got something here. There's something special, something I need to use. It's as simple as using my 2 bare feet. They can make a difference for someone else. So that's where the Barefoot Dutchman was born. And then 2 years later, of course, coming back to Australia afterwards, I still needed to rebuild my life here as more as I wanted it. And I learned more about mental health, and I learned more about the statistics, well, difficult word. And especially here in Australia, it's very bad. And I learned all these tools of how to deal with my own mental health. So I wanted to create a platform where I could share all the tools I learned, and where I could share the stories of what I've been through and where I come from, so other people can feel comfortable and do the same and start that ripple effect. So I figured, okay, I need to do something here in Australia. I need to use my 2 bare feet, and I want to speak to as many people as possible. So Cairns is Sydney, the most densely populated area of Australia. I'm going to walk barefoot from Cairns to Sydney. And then later on, I realized that's a Guinness World Record. So that just generates even more attention to the cause. And yeah, I was walking through every city, every town, every community, speaking to everyone. And the media and the social media just exploded from day one I started, which has really helped me to get the message out there. And again, just to walk with the bare feet, just to show your mind and body are capable of doing whatever you set your mind on, and using that momentum to share my stories. And from the more than 1,000 people that I met on my way, to show everyone you meet has got a background story. Everyone is going through something. You're not alone. And this is what we can do about it to change that perspective, to show men, or anyone for that matter, it's not a weakness, it's courageous. And when something becomes courageous, there's a hero attached. And just to show that you are your own hero, and your story has the hero capabilities of saving someone else's life. So let's just all share and be there for each other. As cliche as it may sound, but that's how we're going to change this.
Oh my God, that is phenomenal. I'm going to keep saying congratulations, but congratulations, because that is phenomenal. I know there is a lot of us do. We listen to our head instead of knowing and believing in our capabilities. I have so many questions, but the first one, to your feet. How did your feet cope in both of those environments?
Yeah, they were not really loving life. they were being bashed. Like on Nepal, it was the last 3 days mostly that was just ice and rocks. Constantly stepping on these little rocks. But it was okay. It was struggling, but it was okay. The Cairns to Sydney story is a different story. Like that was from day 2, pretty much. So I walked around barefoot here quite a lot, and the roads are pretty smooth. We're pretty spoiled here. Never did I think about the highway being made out of bluestone gravel, just thrown on some tar, and that's the highway. So day 2, I found out they had a freshly laid new tar and gravel road. So there's all these sharp little stones, and it's hell. It's pretty much just stepping on Lego for hours and hours on end. It was an absolute nightmare. Like the first 5 days of the walk, I was just so close to just crying and thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? Yeah. It was painful, and it didn't stop. But then after those 5 days, again, I kind of told myself, this is how much it's going to hurt. This is how much the struggle is going to be. Accept it. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to turn around and say, sorry, I'm not going to do this. You're going to do it anyway. So you might as well just accept the fact it's going to be a struggle. You wanted a challenge, you're getting a challenge. But yeah, it got to the point where I was kind of worried about long-lasting effects on my feet. Like the nerve endings on my feet were so bruised from constantly stepping on these little pieces of Lego. Like they were keeping me up at night. Like I was getting these like shocks of like pain going through my whole leg. It was not pretty. But yeah, that was the first 2,000 Ks of the walk from Cairns to Gympie. And then roads slowly started to get better from Sunshine Coast on. But yeah, it was a battle for sure.
Wow. And how long did it take you from Cairns to Sydney?
163 days, 5.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So before I left, people kept asking me like, oh, how long is it going to take you? How much are you going to walk a day? And I didn't really want to think about it. I had no clue. Like I've never done this before. I don't know. But then because people started to ask like, if you think about it, 25K a day should be on average, should be doable. So that will take me 4 months. So that's what I put in my mind. Like I had this, all of a sudden I had this program I needed to follow because people kept asking me. And I was really focused on, okay, now I need to do it. And if I don't make my 25 a day, then, I'm screwed. Well, day 2, it was already impossible to do 25K. Like it's on a road like that. It's just, some days I couldn't even do 5. It's just how I kind of can compare it. Whenever you, walk and you hit your pinky toe to like the side of the table or something, you know how you cramp up your body?
Yeah.
That's how I walked for like 6, 7, 8 hours a day. It's just my body fully cramped from from the pain. So yeah, it took me a little bit longer than expected, but still, I'm at the end. I think the average was 20 or 21 a day, with having a few rest days in between. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And did you have your plan in place of where you were staying, or did you just rock up to places and have to stay the night?
Every day was a surprise. So I wouldn't know where I would end up the morning I would wake up. So I would just pack my tent. I had this little trolley that I was pushing, like a dog trolley with all my camping gear in there. And every day was just going to be a surprise where I would end up, because I wasn't always sure how the road conditions were going to be, like how much effort it was going to take me to get somewhere. I would have an indication. So I would just look on Google Maps. Hey, is there a truck stop? Is there a petrol station nearby? Is there a campsite nearby or a town? If there would be, I would try to get to that spot. But sometimes I just literally had to pitch my tent in the bush on the side of the highway because I just couldn't get any further. So yeah, it was always a surprise, but it was kind of cool though. Not knowing, like every day was just whatever happens. And as in, like, as cliche again as it may sound, that's kind of life as well. Just take life day by day. If you start planning too much ahead, it's always going to go different anyway, and we set ourselves up for disappointment. Of course, it's good to plan some things, but in general, just live in it now. Live in a day. See how the day goes, and however that day ends, it's fine. You again, one step closer to whatever goal you've set yourself. Don't put too much pressure on how your day needs to be. Your day is going to go exactly as it needs to go. And sometimes that meant I was just in a dish somewhere, and sometimes I was at this beautiful hotel or motel that someone offered, or the farm. All of a sudden, I was sleeping between horses and cows, which is amazing. It was always a surprise.
Were you surprised by the amount of support that you received?
Yes, like it blew my mind. I think the best thing about this whole walk was the support I've got on the way. From day one, I just got lucky that it got into the news, and the news spread it. It became like national news, and then it became national news in the Netherlands the day out. It was absolutely amazing, and it kind of led to people knew about it. So whenever they saw me walking, hey, there's the guy. Let's have a chat, or let's stop over and give a donation or see if he needs anything. And social media, of course. So like everyone started to share their story on social media. Like every day, people, like cars would pull over, people would come out and bring me something to drink, some food. I could literally pitch my tent in the bush in the middle of nowhere, and people would still find me there with a hot meal. It was amazing. Every new region I would walk into, the radio or the news would be there to report it again, so they could spread it again into the regions. And that's what did the trick. That's how it gets to all these places where it needs to go, and that's how people felt. Well, he's there. Maybe I can have a chat to him. So I had these amazing chats to people with what mental health means to them. So I had some very intense conversations because of that as well. Of course, there was a lot of loss. But that's what this walk was about. It's a massive walk and talk, pretty much. So yeah, it was amazing. It was still to this day, it blows my mind how people are connected to the story and how they're sharing it and what it does to them. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to get my head around it, just picturing me even walking, going all the pain. Coming home, what do you do then? I mean, you've walked Everest barefoot, and then you've walked from Cairns to Sydney barefoot. You've broken a Guinness World Record, and you've heard all these amazing stories. What do you do next?
Well, that was a bit of an irony, talking about mental health this whole time, and that's when it was time to deal with my own mental health again, because I kind of knew it was going to happen. So once you ride such a high, and so again every day you have this purpose, all of a sudden I was home, and what I'm going to do next? There's nothing to do. So I fell into this deep hole again of, what's next? I don't know. Nothing was happening. So of course I was seeing friends, but I was super happy about that. Like after half a year, I was finally home again. But I had no purpose anymore. I didn't know what to do. So I was definitely struggling. And when I started the walk, I had a girlfriend. when I finished the walk, I had no girlfriend. So I came home to an empty house. That was something very difficult to deal with. And 2 days after I arrived, the Australian government gave me a very friendly letter that my visa had been denied and if I would be so friendly to leave the country. So I had a few tough pills to swallow when I came home. But in that moment, as tough as it was, I figured this is my moment again to deal with it, sit with it, don't find any distractions. It would have been so easy for me to find distractions and go all places and meet new people. But I deliberately chose to sit still for like a month to really process every emotion I was feeling. Because I knew there was a lot of positive things coming. Like this walk opened up so many doors for me to now do something I'm very passionate about. But to be able to like fully enjoy it, I needed to get rid of all these like negative emotions first. Not saying they were gone after 4 weeks, but at least I took my pure intention of going through it. So it was tough. You know, I was by myself for so long on this walk, struggling. And of course, for an amazing cause and like with all the results of it. But now it was again time for me to be by myself and be quiet and go through it. But then afterwards, all the beautiful stuff happened, and I'm absolutely frothing on life. This is the happiest I've ever been. Like all these new opportunities are laying ahead of me. I'm writing a book. Never in my life I thought I'd be writing a book. I can go through the country now as a motivational speaker. I go to schools, go to job sites, go to corporates, wherever they want to hear the story, and hopefully, keep creating that ripple effect. It's amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait for all of that to kind of, flow and go in that direction.
Yeah, it is. It's phenomenal, an incredible journey. And what is normally your key message that when you say you go into schools or you do talks, is what do you implement and want to share with other people and get across to them?
I think the one thing I always just finish with is you can do whatever you set your mind on. Don't let that negative self-talk you have limit yourself from your capabilities. We have so much more potential than we feel or think. And it's such a waste to not seek out that potential. I'm not saying you always have to be, on top of your game. Like I said before, if you feel shit, just feel shit. It's completely fine. But know that you have so much more potential. There's so many people living in a life they don't want to live because they have these limiting beliefs to themselves. And I really want to help them see, you can do whatever you set your mind on. And of course, like one other key point is let's change the perspective of what mental health is. Like, if and I'm sure you've heard this before, but if you break your leg or if you have like a very heavy fever, you go see a doctor. It's completely normal. Mental health is exactly the same. It's just an injury, as you say, like maybe in your brain, in your mind. And there's people out there that have the tools that can help you. You don't always need to have the answers yourself. It's completely fine to not have the answers and to reach out your hand and say like, hey, could you help me with this? And that's what it's all about. And we need to make that comfortable to speak about for each other. So it's up to us, not the government, not anyone else. It's up to us. Like in our community, in our friend group, in our family, we need to show each other that it's completely fine and we need to be there for each other. I think one cool thing that came out of this whole COVID crap we've had is we've become more aware now of how important it is to, be with people, be in communities, and to be there for each other. Now everyone has had to go through their own little mental health chapter because we were locked up with ourselves. So now we are more aware of, okay, this is, it can happen to any one of us. We need to be surrounded with people. Let's do it and let's go out there and speak about it.
Amazing. And any new or exciting future barefoot adventures that are coming your way?
Yes. So next plan is it's still in a very early stage of just being an idea, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know Wim Hof?
Oh yes.
Wim Hof the Iceman. So he's got like a few world records on his name. And I was listening to this podcast with Wim Hof, and he mentioned a barefoot half a marathon he did on Arctic ice And when I heard that, this little twitch went up in my brain. It's like, oh crap, no, I need to do that as well. I just want to do it a little bit different.
Okay.
I want to go to the North Pole and the South Pole, draw a 21K circle around the actual pole. So I'll run through every time zone on the Northern Hemisphere, and then I'll run through every time zone on the Southern Hemisphere, including every country in that challenge. And it's not going to be as much about me trying to break a barefoot world record run. It's about the journey of getting to these poles, because not only do we have a massive problem around mental health, we have a massive problem when it comes to environment and sustainability as well. So my journey towards, and the poles are the first indicators where it shows like, we're not doing so well. So my journey towards these poles is going to be as sustainable as possible. So not using any fossil fuels, and then eventually just ending up me barefoot running there, which is, definitely not using any fuels except for my own.
Yeah.
To kind of make people aware on this journey as well, this is what we can do about climate change.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do with our mind and body.
Yeah. Wow. Do you prepare mentally for that first or physically?
Physically. I think mentally you can't prepare.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to do it and see how it feels. It's with a lot of these things, you can train whatever you want, but not until the situation is actually there is when you know how you're going to respond to certain things. But physically, I need a lot of training.
Yeah.
Like my body is still kind of recovering from the walk. Like I lost so much weight on the walk, so much strength and muscle and endurance. So I'm rebuilding that again now. But once that's rebuilt, it's time to kind of destroy that again.
Your poor body, it's like, oh my God, man, like here we go again.
Yeah. Or maybe after that, I might be able to sit down for a bit. But now I have this momentum, and now I know what I can do. So I want to keep doing that.
Yeah, oh, amazing. Congratulations. As you said, through all the pain and all the toughness, you were doing it for an amazing cause, no matter what you're doing, and you're starting those unique conversations which need to be had. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want to do, and you're doing it in, through a lot of pain. But we're all behind you, knowing that, yeah, you're starting that unique conversation that, even if it does get put in the media, there is something attached to that is sharing a really great message that people need to hear, but sometimes we're afraid to talk about.
Thanks. Well, so do you. I mean, you're the one here doing the podcast and getting these messages in and sharing them. So that's a massive ripple effect.
Oh, thank you. No, it's I think everyone in this space, we need to come together and start those conversations, because as we said, there's some people that are shy, and if we open it up and share our messages and share our stories, then we can really push for change, and not just a greater world change, but change in just one person's life. So I think it makes all the difference. But I want to honestly say just thank you so much for joining me today and starting this conversation and sharing the story, because it is one hell of a story that's obviously not finished yet. So I believe that book will be very long. But where can people find you, and when can they possibly purchase that book?
So people can find me on socials, Instagram and Facebook, The Barefoot Dutchman. The is very important, else you can't find me. And the book is going to be published in the Netherlands first in June. And then it will be translated to English, and it will come to Australia. And I reckon that's going to be around November, December. I reckon these publishers are pretty smart with that. They're going to wait till it's Christmas. So yeah, that will be hopefully the time where it's when people can buy it here in Australia. But yeah, just follow the social media. I'm mostly on Instagram. I'll be sharing a lot of stories of myself as well and the people I met. So definitely find me on there.
Phenomenal. And we'll keep an eye out for that North and South Pole run or walk.
Yeah.
That will be phenomenal. I know I'll be watching, probably cringing the whole time, but no, I'm so happy for you, and you should be so proud of yourself, because what you've done is phenomenal. And I thank you so much for everything that you're doing in this space, because yeah, you're really making a change.
Thank you.
No worries. And thank you everyone else out there for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. I will catch you in 2 weeks. But as I said, check out Anton online, and we'll see you guys all soon.
Awesome.